Okay, some more songs of the True-Eyed Brother. Now, in this dynamism of these different communities of meaning all over the world, in which these biographies that belong to individuals that are all loved equally and unfathomably by the divine creator who has made this structure of the world that we've been talking about. You could say that what I've been describing as the structure of the world, in my writing I call it the Logos order. It's an imprint of the love of the divine mystery, of the love of the creator, onto the organization of the world. Now, what's one of the things that's going on here? Well, if you look again for universal characteristics within these different and incredibly varied human biographies, you will find that one of the things that happens during the course of the biography is a certain kind of conflict over what's right and wrong. And of course, because each individual is unique, there needs to be communities of meaning in which this uniqueness can play itself out and find support for its struggles with moral issues. So, for example, let's take the war in Iraq. Now you have all these American soldiers that have been sent over there by our government. And we can have a nice discussion about whether that's a good thing or not. But the fact is in the biography of these soldiers, they've gone into this region of the world where they're confronted with very, very deep and significant moral questions in their life as soldiers. Now, people don't want to talk about it directly that way, but the fact is that when we have diseases like we call PTSD, when we have what used to be called shell shock, when these individuals come home, you could say that that moral dynamic, that moral dissonance with which they're faced, say, between their orders, what they should do, and the reality that they perceive as they try to survive when people are shooting at them. That dynamic is very, very intense. It's very, very difficult to live in a situation like that in which that dynamic is as intense as it is. And there are places in the world where this intenseness of moral inner conflict is very, very high. Now that's part of the structure of the world. There are other places where it's not so high. But in the United States, for example, we could look at, say, issues in law enforcement and the gang life in Los Angeles, or what goes on in prisons, or just the groups of people that identify themselves with alcoholism and addiction. You go into these biographies and you will find very, very intense moral questions being faced and dealt with. Something is emerging through this process. Something that hadn't existed before is emerging in the process by which all over the world various individual biographies are facing moral dilemmas, each of which has to be unique, faced in a unique set of conceptions, because the individual is unique. A moral question for a father in Afghanistan whose child has just been blown up by a suicide bomber, who's a member of his own religious group, and who has done this out of some kind of whatever, he has to face the question of what does he do? Does he seek revenge? Does he join the militia? Does he just suffer and sorrow and continue to take care of his family? If you're a soldier over there and you've gone out on a mission, you've gone through a village, you've looked inside homes looking for people with arms, and you go down a certain street and your whole group is ambushed by a bunch of people who seem to hate you, and you fight back and you get overloaded with anger, and the next thing you do, you find yourself walking into one of these houses and you just kill everybody in sight. Men, women, children. Doesn't make any difference whether they're part of a group or not. Maybe you're a mercenary and you've gone to work for Blackwater or whatever the successor organization is, and you're drawn there. Well, maybe you like adrenaline rushes and you like the danger, or maybe you just really like the money And in fact, you need the money because your grandmother is sick with cancer and there's no insurance coverage because the greedy insurance industry won't cover her kind of cancer. The motives are very complicated by which people get in these situations. But anyway, you get a collective of 7 or 8 members of a Blackwater organization that all have these reasons for being in their particular biography in their particular situation. And if we look at it from the outside rather than if we think about them instead of think with them, we never understand why the heck they're in that situation in the first place. But there they are living out their biography. And the next thing that happens, they're all tense. I mean, they're ramped up. Maybe they're taking adrenaline drugs. Maybe they're taking speed. Who knows what goes on in the culture of paid guns working for a corporation that wants to make a lot of money off their paid guns. So here's these guys, and they're out there, and the next thing they know, they're getting fired, or they think they're getting fired on by these people around them, and so they pop off. They take the safeties off their guns, and they have all these great automatic weapons, and they're going, and they kill a bunch of people, and it's a horrible thing. Don't get me wrong. It is a horrible thing. We should never stop for a minute thinking it's horrible. But at the same time, we have to recognize that death is a transition to another state of consciousness, and that those people that die will come back again. And who knows, for example, that the group of people that appeared, I'm not saying this has to happen, it's just saying it could happen, that all those people that died in that shootout with the Blackwater people, all those people came together in order to actually do that. Because years ago, the white guys were Arabs in the Crusades, and the Arabs were crusaders in the Crusades, and they had the same battle in the same place with swords and knives. We don't know these things. The world is full of all kinds of mysteries. And we need to have a spiritual view of the realities of these things. We need to develop a sense for the spiritual reality of these things. And we need to stand in awe of it. The same way we stand in awe of a starry sky and a set of sunsets. You know, if we have a nice retired place by a lake and we get out there with our beer and we chug back and we go, wow, oh man, another great sunset, I'm so lucky. We need to stand in awe of the dynamism of the social world, all this stuff that's going on. And it doesn't mean that you have to give up not liking it or wanting to do something about it or fix it, because that's as much part of the situation as anything else. By our likes and dislikes, we are drawn into trying to heal the world of its situations which we think are wrong and bad. All of us have moral hearts, and all of our moral hearts are surrounded by world conceptions, which we need to have in order to be parts of communities of meaning in which we can unfold our individual biography. Think about how complicated the world is. That this kind of thing goes on everywhere with the intensity and sometimes the sublimity. I mean, maybe your karma meaning is to be raised as a monk in a Buddhist temple. Your parents give you away to the temple and you spend all of your life in meditation and contemplation. The varieties of individuality are incredible.